Alright everybody, welcome back to another update video from October 2020 of L&M Productions. So, a lot of you may be asking yourselves, L&M, where have you been for probably the past while or so? Well, I've had a bunch of stuff going on with personal life that I had to sort out, and just a bunch of other things that have been going on. Um, I recently went on another one of my adventures with the Country Rail Fan. This time we went out onto the CSX LCL subdivision and did some rail fanning out there, and didn't really have that good of a day, so that's why you didn't see really that much of a video. It was quite an interesting day that day. We went and chased the Louisville district. Well, not Louisville district. The LCL sub the first day, and then after that, we got up the next day and did some brief train rail thing on the LD where we caught a westbound autorack train. And then after that, we went down to the CNO and TP line and rail fanned out there for pretty much the rest of the day, and had the honor and the privilege of seeing the Wabash Heritage Unit, and I also got my picture taken with it, so that was really fun. I do have some unfortunate news. I've decided, with much consideration, that I will be cutting more videos from the schedule, which include Thursday and Friday. We will no longer be doing Minecraft or Farm Sim anymore, just because I don't really see anyone's really interested in those videos. So I'm gonna cut them from the schedule. If you have any um, opposing arguments you'd like to present, please let me know, and I will definitely take those into consideration. Otherwise, I will cut them from the schedule and probably not bring them back. So we will just be doing the Fallen Flags of America, because I've been keeping an eye on that, and you guys are absolutely loving that series, so I'm glad about it. And there's some people out there who like the ATS videos, so I'll keep those going. But if you don't want me doing those anymore, just let me know. And guys, please don't be afraid to comment. I always try and read your comments. Well, I said that wrong. I always read your comments. So if you have anything you'd like to say, or if you have anything you'd like to get out there that you want me to know, or just want me to consider, definitely do so. I would love to hear what you guys have to say um, before making a decision. I don't really like making decisions by myself. But anyway, in this picture here, we see a collage of F7As and what looks like an F7B in the mix back here. Maybe two. I can't really tell though. But yeah, so like I was saying, guys, if you have anything like you'd like to put out there, whoops, that you want me to know, definitely do so. I'm gonna do a new recording format and just see how it works, because I don't really like putting myself under pressure and doing like the videos on their designated days. I think I will do recording days, like for the Fallen Flags of America. I may do that on, say, Saturdays or Sundays, and ATS I may do the same thing. I may just do two videos in one day and then just put those out there for you guys to see. But anyway, like I said, that's what's been going on. There really has not been much going on. I hope you guys had a great Halloween. I didn't really do much for Halloween because I'm just not a person that likes it, but that's a different story. I'm trying to think. I don't really know of any possible things to mention. Um, hmm. Oh, I do have something to mention. I have a new obsession that I kind of have taken a liking to, and I refer to it as the Fictional Rock Island Railroad. So I will go over to my folder and I will show you, not that's the wrong folder. There it is. And I will show you some of my recent works. I call these semi-fictional locomotives. This is where locomotives that could have existed but didn't are at. So, I'll just show you what I've got complete currently. Give you a tour of a fictional Rock Island roster. So, first up in the 110 to 125 number series, we have the EMD F40PH in the Rock Bankrupt Blue paint scheme. This unit, particularly in the fictional Rock Island universe, to give you guys basically a rundown, this is where two things would not have happened. Well, a few things wouldn't have happened. One, the Rock Island would not have gone bankrupt like it did in 1979 through 1980. That was when the Rock Island basically entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and that was where it ended its story in North American railroading. So that would not have happened. And the Iowa Interstate would one of two things would happen for it. More than likely the latter. It either wouldn't exist or it would be a separate railroad that would have to basically build its own track. But until they got their own route built, they would basically have Rock Island trackage rights. So what this would mean is that they would have trackage rights to run over the Rock Island. And they would do this until they had their trackage built, probably roughly around 84, I'm going to guess. But anyway, the Rock Island ordered originally, they ordered about 30 F40PHs, mainly for about 10 of them out of the 30 stayed around Chicago in commuter service, and you can imagine those got beat to heck and back because it's just Chicago. And the other, what would be, there's 30. The other 25 would mainly see service on long distance service on Rock Island trains such as the Rocket, the Corn Belt Limited, which is a fictional train that would have ran. It's an express train, would have ran from Chicago to Des Moines, Iowa. The Twin Cities, the Zephyr Rocket, and there would have been a few others. These are still in service with the Rock Island, but they've been rebuilt as F40PH-2s, so they look the same, except they just are up to -2 emissions. So they basically are built to the specs of a GP40-2 to give you some comparison. Anyway, moving on. So our next locomotive emplacement here is the SD60I. The Rock Island would have had, I think, these well, you can decide how many based off what I'm telling you, but the number series for these locomotives was between 126 and 170. These would have been brought in for mainly freight service between Chicago and Des Moines, and they would have also seen trackage right service on the Southern Pacific from Dallas, Texas, I think, to San Francisco, because Rock Island had trackage rights on the SP, and they later built their own route out there that was called the Western Extension, ironically. These are still in service with the Rock Island, and they don't have plans of retiring these, although probably in the this is 2020, probably in the next 15 years roughly, they're going to rebuild them to what they consider, they don't call it the SD60E, they're going to call it the, the SD60 ACC, which basically means it's going to have a cab off an SD70H, but it's going to be on an SD60 frame, so that'll be interesting. Here's a locomotive I just completed. This is the C40-9, and this is based off a Norfolk Southern C40-9, as you can tell down below. Um, they would have had a handful of these on the roster. These would be numbered from 171 to 206. These were kind of rare in the Rock Island because the Rock Island was they were primarily they were EMD on what they rostered. They did have some GEs, but they were not. They were few and far between. Um, so anyway, these C40-9s, these were ordered new in the 90s, and they plan to rebuild them in, I think, December of 2025, and they're gonna rebuild. They're gonna rebuild these as, I think they're gonna rebuild these as AC44 C6Ms, or yeah, they're going to rebuild them as that. So those will be coming in probably the next 5 years, because they're going to be, by that point, they'll be 25 years old. So they probably should rebuild them, which is kind of unfortunate. But hey, um, there's going to be some other older locomotives on this list, you'll see. So, this one, as you can tell, I started, but I wasn't finished because I took a break to record this video. This is going to be, they're going to be number 207 to 227 are some C36-7s based off a Union Pacific C30-7, which ironically, these were turned, I think, UP. I don't know if they leased, but they leased most of these out, I think, in the late 90s to railroads who just needed leasing fleets because they were running short on power. So, yeah. Anyway, these will later be sold. The UP would later sell them off, I think, back to GE, and I'm not sure what happened to them from there. Anyway, the Rock Island had a handful of these, and those were ordered new in, I think, the mid 80s. They stayed in service with the Rock Island until around 2007 when they started retiring those. I think they rebuilt those, and what they called those is, I think they called them, they weren't Super Sevens. I'm trying to remember what they were, and I do not have a drawing of it, but oh, they rebuilt them as AC 36 7s, which AC 36 7Rs, which basically meant they were converted to AC traction. They kept the 3600 horsepower. They were the dash 7 dash 7, yeah. No. I have that all wrong. They rebuilt those, I think, as AC 40 8 RMs, which basically meant they were AC traction, 40 meaning 4,000 horsepower, dash 8 meaning they were rebuilt to dash 8 specs, um, the R meaning rebuilt, and the M meaning modernized. So basically, they went to GE. They said, we want these to be rebuilt to specifications of dash 8s. And that's exactly what they did. They were delivered back. And they had basically been rebuilt from the ground up. They had a dash 8 cab. They kept their dash 7 car body. They had dash 8 radiator fans in the back section here, right where my mouse is. Those were taken off dash 8 parts. So, yeah, that's what happened to all of those. SC60Ms, they had several of these. They bought these new in the mid 90s, and they were of the non-triclops variant, which I don't think that's a real name, but I just invented it, so boom. They would keep it. These, to my knowledge, are still running, and I don't know. They haven't announced if they're going to rebuild them or not. So Yeah. They came delivered in the bankruptcy blue paint scheme. Uh, so this will be something I'll cover in another video. Okay, so here is a locomotive that is based off a real idea. The EMD GP10 Illinois Central rebuild. So, Rock Island in the mid 60s to late 70s had a ton of GP9s, F3s, F7s, FTs, and yeah. So, most of them ended up going one of two ways. Most of the GP7s, and I think they had a handful, maybe two or three GP18s they received. They sent all of those east to Chicago. From there, they were sent south down to Paducah, Kentucky on Illinois Central trackage. Um, and they told the Illinois Central, we want you to rebuild these as GP10s. So they took all of the, well, they took, this was mainly for Jeep 7, Jeep 9s, and a few Jeep 18s they had. They sent all of those down to Paducah, and they came back as GP10s. The Rock Island kept those running till around, I think I want to say they were started retiring them, and I think around 2003, and by 2004 all of them were inactive, and I think they sold those to Precision National. Well, not Precision National, they were sold to NREX is what happened to them from there. But these were a very rare locomotive, even in the 80s when they were still around on the Rock Island. So I just thought this was kind of a neat idea for a rebuild, and I personally kind of liked it because I actually thought this was a very realistic idea. So next we have the Rock Island B40-8W. This was taken from an idea that the Rock Island needed a four-axle locomotive that would be a road freight engine, but they had some branch lines that needed locomotives that could handle them, but they had they had branch lines that needed locomotives to handle them, but they didn't have anything powerful enough. So they went to GE and asked, "What do you got for our problem?" They came to the Rock and they said, "Hey, we have this new locomotive we just developed called the B40-8W. It's a B40 with a wide cab." So the Rock Island is like, "Yes, we will take around 201 of these," and they took those, and those basically found themselves spread all over the system. From Chicago to San Francisco, you could see those hauling road trains. They pulled road trains. Sometimes they ended up on coal drags, but that was a rare occurrence. They didn't really do that too much because they just didn't work that good. They were often handling the branch line freights. Heck, a few of them even stuck around in Denver and Des Moines as yard switchers, and they actually didn't do too bad. These are still on the Rock Island, but they have plans to rebuild them into, I think, a -8 rebuild. I think they're going to call it the AC46 C6M, I think is what that's going to be called, although I'm not for sure. That's based on a real rebuild that Norfolk Southern tried to do, but it didn't work out well, so they didn't do it. Yeah, so no, it would be this is what it would be, because the A meaning it's AC traction, the B meaning it's a four axle, the 46 meaning it was upgraded to 4,600 horsepower, and the C6M basically indicating it's a rebuilt GE. Here's some more incomplete projects. So here we have another unique locomotive I've thought of for Rock Island. The P42DC Genesis. This locomotive was originally delivered new to Rock Island in 1992 because they still had their basically the F40s are all they had in service at this time, and a handful of the GP10s were drafted into passenger service, even though they were not HIP equipped. Um, so to fix that problem, what they did is they rebuilt some of their F7 and F3B units into power cars. So they would pair them with the Jeep 10s, and they basically run as passenger trains. Well, they basically run as sets. So you'd have the Jeep 10 supplying the motive power, and then the F3B or F7B, whichever it was, would be the power car. So that's what happened there. Anyway, they needed to the F40s needed help because the work was just a bit much for them. So they bought a few of the P42DC Genesis locomotives. I think I said that wrong. They bought these new in '96, even though they already had some P40 DCs floating around. And speaking of P40 DC, here it is. So the P40 DC, they had 10 of these, even though this 900, as seen here, was seen after her rebuild as into a P42 DC. So it was basically the same locomotive. It was just upgraded to 4200 as opposed to 4000 horsepower. So, these units were the first Genesis that came onto Rock Island, and they actually bought, I think, an additional 20 of these. So they really would be numbered 9,000. Oh, wait, I said that wrong. They bought 100 of these. So they didn't really need to buy the P42 DC, but they wanted to anyway, just to kind of say to GE, hey, we like your monocoque design and whatnot. So, yeah. These are still in service, and they really do. And since they've been rebuilt as P42 DCs, they don't really plan to take them out of service anytime soon. Though the Rock Island addresses these as P42 DCRs, and that just means they're a P42 DC except the R, meaning it's been rebuilt. So, here's another interesting locomotive. So the Rock Island had exactly 21 of these if they ordered new. These were GP39s, which I thought was an interesting pick. So the Rock Island needed a locomotive that could handle coal drags as well as freights well, and they went to EMD, and this is what they gave them, the GP39. They brought in 3 of these, numbered from 4800 to 4802, tested them, liked them, and ordered a few more, and they went up to 4820. These are still on the Rock Island, but they've been rebuilt as GP39-2Rs. So they are basically a GP39, but they've upgraded the -2 emissions, and the R meaning it's been rebuilt, not to be confused with GP39-2, which does exist and is actually more common. So here's another oddball locomotive that the Rock Island purchased. So they purchased 31 of these, being numbered from 5000 to 5031, and these were ALCO C628s. They originally brought 2 of these on the railroad, 5000 and 5001, liked them, and ordered 28 more. So, well, no, I was wrong. That's actually 29 more. These stayed around on the Rock Island until around 1994, when these were put in storage for a little bit, and they came out with a rebuild program that GE started where they rebuilt ALCOs, and they were called ALCO C628Ms, basically meaning they were C628s, but the M meaning they had been re-engined, so they basically had a GE four-stroke engine. So, which at that time would have been out of a Dash 8. So it was basically an ALCO with a Dash 8 engine. And why was their name not? Why were they not addressed as something like a C40-8 RM or something like that? Well, that was actually because they wanted to keep the ALCO heritage, so they just put an M on it because that was a common thing with ALCOs. A lot of them would be sent in to EMD, particularly RS locomotives, meaning road switchers, or S meaning switcher locomotives, and they would come out as like an S1M or an RS3M, for example. So yeah. Here's another locomotive on the Rock Island that exists. The BQ36-7, which is built off a BQ23-7 frame. This locomotive was actually a what-if scenario if the BQ23-7 had not miserably failed on GE and they had offered the BQ option with every Dash 7. So, example, you could have a BQ23-7, BQ30-7, BQ36-7, and I think there was also a BQ 34-7, but that unit was never made. It was actually a unit proposed by the Missouri Pacific, but it never came to fruition. Just because the Missouri Pacific didn't want it, they went to EMD and got something better. Anyway, so I have several projects in here. Not a lot of these aren't finished. Here's another one of my favorite locomotives, GP15T. This unit was actually ordered by the Rock Island from EMD in I would say the mid 80s is when they ordered these. They ordered these because they had a need for a switcher locomotive that could function as a local or yard job unit and still do fine. So they ordered 21 of these, being 6,000 to 6,020, and that was for GP15T. These are still very much in active service. 4 of them work around Chicago. 6 of them work around Des Moines. 3 work around Dallas. And I think they have 2 that work in Memphis. I'm not sure about the others. Okay, so here's another interesting unit I came up with, the Rock Island FP7A. This unit was basically taken from an F9A, which is basically the same as an FP7A. So it was painted in the Rock Island maroon and yellow paint scheme, and this is basically what happens when Rock Island takes 4 FP7As, which they did have, by the way, and pretty them up and make them OCS units. That's exactly what happened in the case of 408, which was its original number, but it was later renumbered to 1A. They had 4 of these, being 1A to 4A. And here's an F3B, or an F3B of the same thing, being these are originally numbered. Hang on, I'm thinking. These were originally numbered from 412 to 415. They were later renumbered to 1B through 14. From 1B to 4B. These are still in service with the Rock Island, and they mainly run on OCS trains and occasionally excursion trains. Here's another interesting unit I came up with. So this is another fictional unit. This is a Conrail Quality C40-9. This is what happened if Conrail had not been merged into Norfolk Southern and CSX. So basically, those roads would be a lot smaller and they would remain the same throughout the throughout the 80s and the 90s, and Conrail would still function as a system. Although eventually it would go bankrupt due to the fact it had poor management by the government. Anyway, that's a different story. But these units they mainly stuck up around northern Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, New York, and Pennsylvania. They rarely ventured west of Indiana just due to the fact Conrail didn't really want them going out west. So that's another unit I tried to do. Here's another unit I came up with. So these were rebuilt from older FTs and F7s mainly. This is a Rock Island CF7. This is what would have been if the Rock Island had rebuilt their old F units into CF7s, and they would have sent them to the LaGrange plant where they would have been rebuilt basically on GP7 and Jeep 9 frames, but received a custom cab delivered and manufactured by the Santa Fe. So here's something else I did recently. This is a Rock Island 53-foot intermodal car. There's not really much to be said here. It's painted in bankruptcy blue and received Rock Island lettering. These mainly run between Chicago and New Orleans, Louisiana through Illinois Central, now CN trackage rights. Here's a Fictional Rock Island SD45. There would have been about 10 of these on the Rock Island, but that's about it. So, I hope you enjoy this brief presentation by L&M Productions. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button, and don't forget to leave a comment down below if you have anything you want me to see. I'll be happy to read it, and I will get back with you. But until next time, my friends, I'll see you somewhere down the line. This is L&M Productions, out.